The great hall of the Empire was silent, far too silent for a place built to echo with power and command. At the center of the throne room sat the Queen, unmoving, her tall figure wrapped in dark ceremonial robes that marked 1,000 days of mourning. Once, this hall had been filled with advisors, generals, and ambassadors from 100 star systems, but now only grief ruled here. Her daughter, the Crown Princess, had vanished during a deep space mission beyond the mapped borders of the Empire. No wreckage was found, no final signal received, only empty space and unanswered questions. After years of searching, the Council had declared the princess lost forever. The Queen had accepted their words in public, but in her heart, the wound never closed. Every detail of the throne room reminded her of what she had lost. The banners along the walls still carried the royal symbol, a mark once meant to represent continuity and hope. Now, to the Queen, it felt like a cruel lie. She remembered the way her daughter used to stand beside her, curious eyes watching everything, asking questions about worlds, cultures, and responsibility. The princess had believed deeply in unity and cooperation, even with weaker species. That belief had made her different, and perhaps, the Queen feared, it had also led her into danger. Alone on the throne, the Queen tightened her grip on the armrests, as if holding herself together required physical effort. The Empire had changed since the princess disappeared. The Queen ruled with colder decisions, trusting strength over compassion. Borders were closed, patrols increased, and foreign species were kept at a distance. Many whispered that the Queen had become ruthless, but none dared say it aloud. Grief had reshaped her into something harder, something unbreakable, or so it seemed. Yet when the hall was empty and the lights dimmed, she allowed herself to remember. She remembered laughter, shared meals, and quiet conversations under artificial stars. Those memories hurt more than any enemy ever could. On this day, the Queen had ordered all court sessions cancelled. It marked the anniversary of the princess's disappearance, a date officially erased from imperial records. She had commanded that no one speak of it again, that no monuments be built, and no public mourning be shown. To the Empire, the princess was a closed chapter. To the Queen, she was an open wound. She rose slowly from the throne and walked toward the wide viewing window behind it. Beyond the transparent barrier lay the capital world, glowing with ordered lights and endless motion. Life continued, uncaring and unstoppable. As the Queen stared out into space, a low hum broke the silence. Far below the throne room, in a forgotten sector of the Imperial Communications Array, an ancient system stirred. It had not been used in years, dismissed as outdated and unreliable. Most of the Empire's technology had moved far beyond it. Still, the system functioned, quietly listening to the universe. A weak signal brushed against its sensors, faint and damaged, carrying fragments of an old transmission. It did not trigger alarms. It did not reach the high command. Instead, it was logged automatically and stored unnoticed, among thousands of discarded data streams. The Queen felt none of this, yet a strange unease settled over her. She pressed her hand against the window, gazing into the darkness between stars. For a brief moment, she imagined she saw movement far away, a flicker of light where there should have been nothing. She dismissed the thought as grief playing tricks on her mind. Hope, she had learned, was dangerous. Hope had a way of breaking hearts all over again. She turned away from the stars and returned to her throne, lowering herself with controlled grace. High above the capital, the forgotten signal continued its journey, weak but persistent, repeating a message long thought lost. Somewhere in deep space, far beyond the Queen's reach, someone had refused to give up. And though the Empire believed the story was over, the universe had not finished telling it yet. Far from the cold order of the alien empire, a small human exploration ship moved quietly through deep space. The ship was old by human standards, scarred by past missions, and repaired more times than its crew could remember, yet the humans aboard did not measure value by appearance. They measured it by purpose. This crew had seen the data fragments that others ignored, an ancient signal buried in forgotten archives, a signal marked impossible and useless by stronger civilizations the humans saw. something different. They saw a question unanswered and a promise unfinished. While alien empires closed their records and moved on, humanity leaned forward. The crew captain stood at the center of the command deck reading the same damaged signal again and again. He did not know why it stayed in his mind, only that leaving it unanswered felt wrong. Humans were like that. They struggled to walk away from mysteries, especially when lives might be involved. The crew discussed the risks openly. They knew the region where the signal originated was a forbidden sector controlled by ancient machines and unstable space phenomena. Many species avoided it. Entire fleets had vanished there. The logical choice was to turn back. The safe choice was to forget. The human choice was to continue. No orders forced them, no reward waited for them. There was only a shared belief that if someone was lost, then someone should search. The crew adjusted course quietly, sending no announcement to any power. Human ships rarely asked permission when conscience demanded action. As days passed, the signal grew clearer, not stronger but more understandable. It was old, very old and damaged, yet unmistakably a distress call. It did not beg for rescue, it simply repeated coordinates and a fading identification code belonging to the alien empire. The crew realized what that meant. The lost daughter of the queen, the princess, declared dead years ago. Humans exchanged looks filled with disbelief and determination. Any other species would have stopped there. The political cost alone was immense, but humans had a history of stepping into storms others feared. They had learned long ago that survival meant standing together, not just with their own kind but with anyone abandoned by the universe. The journey tested them. Space twisted in unnatural ways. Time felt heavy and sensors failed without warning. The ships suffered damage again and again, yet each time humans repaired it with calm focus. No panic, no retreat. They joked, they shared stories of Earth and old missions. They reminded each other why humans explored the stars, not for conquest but connection. In quiet moments, some wondered if the queen would even want her daughter found. They pushed the thought aside. Finding the truth mattered more than comfort. When the ship finally reached the edge of the forbidden zone, silence filled the deck. Stars dimmed and the void seemed alive. Watching, the crew moved carefully, guided by instinct and experience. Deep within the sector they detected faint energy readings, not natural, not random. Someone or something was still operating. The humans followed the trail through debris fields and ancient wreckage until they saw it, an underground structure buried beneath a dead world, protected by dormant weapons and forgotten technology. The signal source was there. The crew did not celebrate, they prepared. They knew reaching the structure meant facing whatever had claimed it long ago. Armed drones descended first, triggering defenses that came alive in violent flashes. Humans adapted quickly, sacrificing machines to learn patterns. Then they advanced on foot, trusting one another with unspoken faith. They moved through dark corridors filled with silent threats until finally they reached the core chamber. There they found a stasis pod intact, and glowing softly inside lay the alien princess, alive, preserved, wounded but breathing. Humanity had crossed impossible distance, endured impossible danger, and now stood face to face with the proof that hope had not been foolish. After years of mourning and silence, the truth waited quietly in the dark. The humans did not cheer, they did not claim victory, they simply began the rescue. Yet, even as they worked, unseen forces awakened. The ancient systems had noticed intruders. Alarms echoed through forgotten halls and distant weapons powered up. The humans had found her, but survival was no longer certain. Behind them, the way out began to close, and ahead of them stood a choice that would define how the universe remembered humanity. The planet had no name, only a warning attached to star maps and broken symbols and erased coordinates. It was a dead world wrapped in ash and shadow. Its surface showed scars of ancient war, vast cracks burned into stone, and silent towers half buried by time. The human ship hovered above it, scanning the land below. Every system reported danger, unstable gravity, hostile energy fields, and traces of automated weapons left behind by a civilization long gone. Any rational force would have turned back the humans did not. They descended slowly, knowing that whatever had kept the princess alive for so long would not surrender her easily. The landing zone was narrow, surrounded by jagged rock formations that looked like frozen waves. As the ship touched down, the ground trembled beneath it. Dust clouds rose into the air, and the sky darkened as if the planet itself resisted their presence. The humans moved with practiced discipline, securing the perimeter and setting up signal relays. They spoke little, not out of fear, but focused. This world was watching them. They could feel it in the way the silence pressed against their senses. As they advanced toward the underground structure, ancient machines stirred, massive doors sealed for centuries shifted open with grinding resistance, automated defenses awakened, scanning for threats that no longer existed until they found the humans. Moving carefully, the team disabled traps and bypassed security systems older than their own species. Human adaptability proved stronger than forgotten technology. They did not fight the machines with brute force, they learned from them, adjusted to them, and moved forward step by step. Deep below the surface, the air grew colder, and still lights flickered to life, revealing long corridors etched with alien symbols. The humans passed through halls where echoes of the past seemed trapped in the walls. They found evidence of struggle, broken armor, energy marks, and remnants of battles fought long before humanity reached the stars. It became clear that this place had once been a prison, not a sanctuary. The princess had not been preserved by kindness but by design, a living key to something the ancient builders had wanted to control. At the heart of the structure they found the chamber. The stasis pod stood alone, surrounded by inactive consoles and power conduits still functioning after centuries. Inside the transparent shell lay the princess. Her features were unchanged, untouched by time. A slow, steady pulse confirmed she was alive. The humans paused, not in triumph, but respect. They had reached the truth. Others had abandoned. One of them whispered that the queen had been wrong to give up. Another replied that grief had made her human in a way even aliens could understand. The rescue began immediately. Systems were connected, power rerouted, and medical scans performed. The humans worked with calm precision. They spoke softly, as if the princess could hear them, promising safety and home. Though she remained unconscious, her vital signs responded, stabilizing. As the pod disengaged from the ancient network for the first time in years, the princess was free. That freedom triggered the world itself. The structure reacted violently. Alarms rang through the depths, and ancient guardians awakened. Weapons powered up, targeting anything that moved. The humans had expected resistance, but not this scale. The planet had one final purpose, and it would not release its prisoner without a fight. The team moved fast, lifting the stasis pod and retreating through corridors now collapsing behind them. Machines emerged from hidden chambers, relentless and powerful. The humans did not panic. They formed defensive lines, protecting the pod at all costs. They took hits, suffered injuries, and sacrificed equipment, but never their mission. Humanity had crossed galaxies for one life. They would not fail now. As they reached the surface, the ground shook violently. Cracks spread across the planet, releasing bursts of energy into the sky. The human ship took fire as it lifted off, barely clearing the collapsing terrain behind them. The forbidden world began to tear itself apart, the ancient prison destroying itself rather than allowing its secret to escape. Safe in orbit, the crew finally allowed themselves a breath. The princess was alive but fragile. The danger was far from over. Their ship was damaged, their position exposed, and powerful forces would soon learn what they had done. The humans had stolen hope from a dead world, and the universe would not ignore that. Far away within the alien empire, the queen sat unaware that the impossible had already begun to move toward her, and when she learned the truth, everything would change. The human ship drifted through open space, running on reduced power. Every system was strained, and every crew member felt the weight of what they carried. The stasis pod rested at the center of the medical bay, surrounded by soft white light. The princess lay within it, still unconscious, but alive. Human doctors monitored her carefully, adjusting ancient settings with modern tools. They spoke quietly, treating her not as a symbol or political risk, but as a living being who had endured more than anyone could imagine. As the ship moved farther from the forbidden world, the princess began to stir. The stasis field weakened just enough for her eyes to open. She did not panic, she did not scream. Her gaze moved slowly, taking in unfamiliar faces, strange lights, and a language she had never heard before. The humans noticed immediately, lowering their tools and stepping back to give her space. One of them spoke gently, using a translator device. His voice was calm and steady. He told her she was safe, that she had been found, that she was no longer alone. Confusion washed over the princess. She remembered pain, darkness, and endless silence. Time had no meaning in the prison. The ancient machines had kept her alive, feeding her memories of her past to keep her mind intact. She remembered her mother, the queen, standing tall and proud. She remembered her mission of peace beyond the borders of the empire. Then the ambush, the crash, the cold metal hands pulling her into the depths of the planet. She believed only moments had passed since then. Learning that years had gone by shook her deeply. The humans listened as she spoke. They did not interrupt, they did not judge. They learned that the ancient civilization had used her as a biological key. Her royal genetics allowed their systems to remain active long after their creators were gone. She had survived not by mercy but because she was useful, yet even in that prison she had held on to hope. She had believed someone would come, not her empire, not her fleet, but someone unknown, someone kind. That belief confused the humans and humbled them. They realized they were not just rescuers, they were the answer to a faith she had carried alone in darkness. The princess looked at them with quiet wonder, asking why they had come. When they explained that they refused to let a lost signal be forgotten, her eyes filled with emotion. She had never heard of humanity before, yet in this moment she understood them more than any species she had known. As her strength returned, the princess watched how humans treated one another. They shared food, laughter, and stories. Even in crisis they argued but trusted each other completely. Their loyalty was not enforced by rank or fear but by choice. She saw how they checked on wounded crew members before repairing weapons, how they protected her without expecting gratitude. This was not how empires behaved, this was something different. Yet danger still followed them. The ship detected long-range scans. The Empire had noticed movement near the forbidden sector. Other forces were watching too. The rescue could not remain secret. The humans knew returning the princess would change the balance of power across many systems. They prepared for confrontation, not with aggression, but readiness. The princess requested to speak to the crew. She stood weak but proud and thanked them not as a royal, but as a survivor. She told them her mother would not believe this. She warned them that the queen ruled from grief and strength, now not compassion. The humans listened and made their choice. They would return her anyway because some truths were worth facing consequences. As the ship altered course toward the Imperial core worlds, the princess looked out into the stars. For the first time in years she felt free but also afraid. She wondered who her mother had become, and whether the empire she remembered still existed. The humans could not answer that. They could only promise that she would not face it alone. Far ahead the lights of the empire awaited, and with them a reunion that would shake the universe. The humans had carried hope out of darkness, and now they were bringing it home. The edge of the imperial territory appeared like a wall of light and shadow. Massive defense stations drifted in perfect formation and warships patrolled with silent precision. The human vessel was small in comparison, damaged and slow, yet it did not turn away. Every sensor aboard warned of danger. Every signal broadcast from the Empire demanded identification and surrender. The humans answered only once, stating that they carried a living passenger who must be returned safely. After that they went silent. Imperial commanders reacted with suspicion and force. Interceptor fleets moved to surround the human ship. Weapons locked and energy fields flared. The Empire had been taught to see strength as control and control as safety. Unknown humans entering restricted space with secret cargo represented chaos, and chaos was not tolerated. Orders were issued to disable the ship and secure its contents. The humans prepared for what they had known would come. They did not attack first. They focused on defense, using clever maneuvering and calculated risk. Their ship weaved through formations, exploiting blind spots and using debris fields as cover. Human pilots pushed damaged engines beyond safe limits, trusting instinct and teamwork over rules. Imperial ships outnumbered them and outgunned them, but they lacked one thing the humans possessed without question: trust in one another. The battle spread across the border region. Energy beams lit the void and automated drones swarmed toward the human vessel. The humans responded with precision, sacrificing non-essential systems to protect the medical bay where the princess rested. Crew members rotated duties without hesitation, wounded stepping aside only when they could no longer stand. Their focus never wavered. The mission came before survival. Within the Imperial command structure, confusion grew. Reports conflicted. Sensors showed the human ship shielding something alive, not a weapon, not stolen technology, a living being. Imperial leaders hesitated, recognizing royal genetic signatures buried deep within the data. The impossible began to take shape. The lost daughter of the queen was not dead, she was here. Before orders could change, a massive defense platform fired a disabling blast toward the human ship. The impact tore through hull plating, sending alarms screaming through every deck. Fires erupted and gravity fluctuated. The ship began to drift, power fading rapidly. Yet even then the humans did not abandon their cargo. They rerouted life support to the medical bay, sealing themselves in vacuum-exposed corridors if needed. The princess felt the violence around her. She sensed the fear not of the humans, but for her safety. She rose weakly, leaving the medical bay against advice. She saw the damage, the blood, the exhaustion, and understood what these strangers were willing to lose for her. In that moment she made her choice. She activated the ship's communication array and broadcast her identity to every Imperial frequency. Her voice carried across the stars steady and clear. She named herself daughter of the Queen, heir to the throne, alive and returning. The battlefield froze, weapons powered down as disbelief spread through every rank. The humans used that moment to stabilize their ship and move forward slowly, openly, no longer hiding. Imperial fleets parted, uncertain, unsure whether to obey standing orders or living truth. The human vessel passed through the defenses, scarred but unbroken. Every sensor now confirmed the same impossible fact: the Queen's daughter lived. Deep within the capital world, the Queen received the transmission. She listened without expression as the voice she had mourned for years spoke her name. The hall stood silent as the Queen rose slowly. Her grief hardened into shock, and then something dangerous: hope. The humans continued their approach unchallenged now, but watched closely. The Empire had not attacked them again, but trust was fragile. One wrong move could still mean destruction, yet humanity had already crossed that line. They had faced an empire, and stood their ground not with conquest but conviction. As the human ship entered the final approach, the universe held its breath. History was about to change, and humanity would stand at its center, not as rulers but as the ones who refused to let hope die. The human ship descended toward the capital world slowly, its damaged hull clearly visible to every sensor and every screen across the Empire. Millions watched in silence as the vessel that had defied Imperial law crossed the final boundary. No weapons fired, no alarms sounded. The sky itself seemed to pause. The Queen stood alone on the highest platform of the palace, staring upward, her expression carved from stone. For years she had trained herself to believe her daughter was gone. She had buried hope deeper than any enemy, yet now that same hope returned without mercy, demanding to be faced. As the ship landed, guards surrounded it, instantly forming defensive lines. Their weapons were raised, but uncertain orders had been given to hold position and wait. No one wished to be the one who made a mistake. The boarding ramp lowered with a soft mechanical sound, and the humans emerged first, tired, injured, and unarmed. They moved slowly, deliberately, showing no threat. One of them stepped forward and spoke a single sentence carried through the air: "We have returned what was never meant to be lost." Then the princess appeared, supported by two humans. She walked into the open light. Her steps were weak but steady. Her eyes searched the platform until they found the Queen. For a moment neither moved. Time seemed to stretch thin across the space between them. Years of grief, fear, anger, and silence pressed into a single breath. The Queen took one step forward, then another. Her composure cracked, her voice trembled as she spoke her daughter's name, a name she had forbidden others from speaking. The princess answered with one word: "Mother." The sound shattered the silence. The Queen reached out, touching her daughter, as if afraid she would vanish. The guards lowered their weapons. Advisors stood frozen. No one dared interrupt what the Empire was witnessing. Tears fell freely now. The Queen pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her tightly, as though letting go would undo reality. In that embrace, the Queen was no ruler, no symbol of power. She was simply a mother reunited with her child. The Empire watched as their unbreakable leader finally broke, and in that breaking found truth. The humans stood back, giving space, expecting nothing. They had completed their mission, yet the Queen turned to them. Her expression transformed. Her voice regained its strength, but not its coldness. She demanded to know why they had done this, why they had crossed forbidden space, faced Imperial fleets, and risked war for one life. The humans answered simply: because someone was still alive. That answer echoed through the platform, and beyond it was not strategy or ambition, it was belief. The Queen studied them deeply, seeing no deception, no hunger for reward, only exhaustion and resolve. She realized then that humanity's strength did not come from weapons or numbers, but from something far more dangerous to empires: conviction. The princess spoke then, telling her story of darkness, survival, and the humans who had come when no one else would. She spoke of kindness shared in silence, of protection without obligation, of a species that did not measure worth by power. The Queen listened as her view of the galaxies shifted. In a single decision, the Queen dismissed the guards and ordered the humans given protection and medical care. She declared that no harm would come to them within her empire. Her advisors protested quietly, warning of precedent and weakness. She silenced them with a raised hand. Weakness, she said, is abandoning the living. The announcement spread instantly across the stars. Humanity had not conquered the Empire, yet they had changed it. The Queen stood beside her daughter and faced the gathered leaders of her world. Her voice carried authority renewed by truth. She declared that the age of isolation was over. The Empire would remember who brought hope back from the dead. The humans were escorted into the palace not as prisoners but as guests, as healers tended to wounds and engineers examined their ship. The Queen watched them closely. Humanity had entered her empire through grief and left an imprint that power alone never could. As night fell over the capital, the Queen looked out at the stars once more. This time her gaze was not empty. The universe had returned what she had lost, and in doing so revealed a new force rising among the stars, one that would never be forgotten. The days that followed the reunion reshaped the empire in ways no law or fleet ever had. The palace, once ruled by silence, now carried quiet movement and cautious hope. The princess recovered slowly, surrounded not by guards, but by healers, scholars, and humans who had become part of her survival. She walked the gardens again, learning what had changed during her absence, and what had remained. The Queen stayed close, no longer distant, no longer sealed behind command and ritual. For the first time in many cycles, the empire saw its ruler not only as a symbol of power, but as a living being shaped by loss and return. Across the capital, world stories spread faster than official decrees. Citizens spoke of the humans who crossed forbidden space and faced the empire without hatred. They spoke of a species that valued a single life enough to challenge destiny. The idea unsettled many, inspired others, and frightened those who depended on fear to rule. Humanity had not arrived with banners or demands, yet their actions echoed louder than conquest. The Queen summoned the humans before the High Assembly, a gathering that shaped the fate of entire star systems. The chamber filled with leaders, warriors, and observers from allied worlds. The humans stood small within the vast hall, carrying scars instead of weapons. The Queen spoke clearly, and without hesitation. She told the truth of her grief, of her mistakes, and of the moment hope returned, carried by strangers who owed her nothing. She declared that humanity would be honored not for strength but for refusal to abandon the living. A new accord was announced, an alliance based not on dominance but shared protection and understanding. Humanity would be granted safe passage, trade access, and recognition as a rising power among the stars. The assembly reacted with shock, resistance, and awe. Some protested, fearing change. Others remained silent, sensing history turning before them. The Queen ended debate with a final statement: empires fall when they forget compassion. The humans did not celebrate. They accepted the accord with quiet respect, knowing that trust was built through action, not words. They prepared to leave, returning to their own worlds, carrying stories few would believe until confirmed. Across the galaxy, the princess visited their ship before departure, thanking each of them not as royalty, but as someone who had been saved. She promised that humanity would always have a place within the empire, not as subjects but as allies. As the human ship departed the capital world, millions watched from below. No salutes, no ceremonies, just silence filled with meaning. The Queen stood beside her daughter, watching the vessel disappear into the stars. She understood now that the universe was larger than empires and stronger than fear. In the years that followed, the story spread across every known system. Humanity became known not as conquerors or survivors, but as the ones who came back when all others turned away. Their ships were welcomed in ports once closed. Their words carried weight beyond their size. Children across species learned of the humans who refused to give up. The Queen ruled differently now. Borders opened cautiously, diplomacy replaced force where possible, and memory was no longer erased. The name of the lost princess was restored to history, not as a tragedy but as a reminder that endings could be reversed. Far beyond the empire, human explorers continued their journeys, carrying the same belief into darkness that life mattered no matter how far gone it seemed. Somewhere another signal waited, forgotten and faint, and somewhere humans would hear it. Because long after fleets rusted and empires faded, the universe would remember one truth: humanity was the species that did not let hope die.